I have a third.
Yes, you have. Also from Jersey, Jackson, New Jersey, Robert.
Robert, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. What would you like to say?
My question is about Ron Paul. Ron Paul seems, to my knowledge, to have represent more progressive policies than
maybe
than
on
Obama
foreign policy, Robert.
What's
on
your
foreign
take on
policy,
it?
but not on domestic policy. It doesn't.
I understand. I just wanted to take, just hear your take on it.
Well, there's a lot of people, because of the flatness of the surrounding landscape, see Ron Paul as quite a considerable peak. And that's a measure of how shrunken the American political scene has become, which is just about as shrunken as the British political scene, I should say. But Ron Paul is another one who believes that government is the problem. He believes that Reagan is right about that. He believes that that people should not be able to rely upon the state. He believes in a kind of rampant, red and tooth and claw individualistic capitalism, and some of his views on the gold standard and so on are absurd orthodoxies from the 1930s that the Roosevelt era ought to have swept into the ash can of history. But the reason progressive people find themselves drawn to him is that at least he's an isolationist. He doesn't want to involve your country in endless wars around the world and all the corruption involved in the military and industrial complex which is associated with that. He has a better view, I think, on the realities in the Middle East than most of his Republican colleagues. But the truth is, Robert, he has no chance whatsoever of winning the Republican Party's nomination. So in that sense, he's a chimera that flits across the horizon tantalizingly, but only, I'm afraid.
Here's John in Blackburn, Lancashire. Go ahead, John.
Hello there.
Hello, sir.
Hello, yes. I was wondering, if, basically, why is it that you don't support Ron Paul? He's someone that's actually stopping, preventing us from going to war, and also pulling the United States out of Afghanistan and Iraq. He's against the war in Iran. He wants to build ties with the country. But what I don't understand is why you don't seem to support him. Could you?
Because he's a far-right libertarian who wants to abolish the government. He doesn't just want to abolish the departments that I would like to see abolished. He thinks that the state should effectively be abolished, that the state has no business educating people's children or keeping people healthy or doing any of the things that I believe a state needs to do. He believes in tooth and claw, untrammeled, unreformed, free market capitalism. And if you think that that has anything to benefit you up in Blackburn in Lancashire, John, you've got another think coming. Here's David in Essex. Go ahead, David.
This is Victor from Jersey City.
Victor in Jersey City, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I was just wondering what you felt. I've been watching the Republican debates the last couple of months, and the only one that stands out, especially when it comes to foreign policy, is good old Ron Paul.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what you felt about his chances. He seems to be doing pretty well in Iowa, and he's totally against war with Iran. He's the only one who stands against marching into war with Iran. He may have some monetary policy perspectives that not everyone agrees with, but I think overall he is the only one that is kind of matches your views here on the show, especially when it comes to foreign policy. And he seems to be surging in the polls in Iowa. What do you think about him and the libertarian movement in general?
Well, I'm against the libertarian movement in general because I think they would be bad for the people of the United States. The libertarians believe in small government getting towards no government at all. And I don't think a country where a third of the people are living in poverty can be left to market forces to get them out of it. So I'm against Ron Paul. But of course his foreign policy is better than all the others. It's better than all the other Democrats that we've had running for office in recent years. So if I was thinking selfishly, I'd want Ron Paul to be the president because it would mean isolationism in America, and it would mean that we wouldn't have hundreds of thousands of American boots on other people's soil. So, of course, I like his foreign policy. He is catching up on Gingrich in Iowa, but I don't think he's going to win in Iowa, and I don't think he could win anywhere else, because when his economic policy was forensically examined, it would be found wanting by the very people, the very poorest and working class people, who would have the most to fear from a libertarian victory there. No, I think that Gingrich is going to win in Iowa, and God save us if he is the Republican nominee, and if he were to win, it would be Barry Goldwater without the ethics. Thanks, Victor.
Right.
No Mancha in Brooklyn, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Mr. Galloway?
Very well, thank you very much.
First time you got a chance to speak to you. I'm very glad. Okay, you're discussing about Obama.
Yes.
And when Obama, in the beginning during his campaign, we thought, he was changed. He was hope for the middle class. And being a Muslim, we thought, he was going to change pave a new way for diplomatic rather than what's been going on for the past couple of decades between the Muslim world and the United States. But I felt like Obama betrayed all of us, and, he's not doing what he promised us. But then on the other hand, now the elections are coming up. We have no, who do we vote for? Ron Paul, who I thought was the man, there's no chance of him winning the nomination. So what do we as Americans do? Who do we elect as our new president if this man has let us down and betrayed us, and what he did was lie to us?
Well, I think you've encapsulated in a nutshell exactly the dilemma that we all now face. And we're going to have to win this argument, No Mancha, because I think implied in the sad tone of your question is the truth that we're going to have to vote for President Obama again for a second term. This is the dilemma on the horns of which we sit, because it's not George Galloway who's running for president. It's not Jesse Jackson. It's not Noam Chomsky. It's the Republican candidate or the Democrat candidate. And the Republican candidate is going to be worse than even the disappointing, betraying, wasted asset that was President Barack Obama. So I'm going to start now, and I'm going to continue, if God gives me breath, until November, in person, in America, and on the radio here on WBAI, saying we have to get real. We have to re-elect Obama, and we have to hope and push and fight that his second term is not as disastrous as for many people his first term has been, No Mancha. What do you think?
So you believe that us as American citizens, especially me as a Muslim American, because, us Muslims, we have the tendency, we concentrate, we pick our president, we have a lot depending on their foreign policy, especially their attitude towards Israel, their attitude towards, Middle East, and I come from Pakistan. What's their attitude over there? How's their policies over there? And Obama, when we thought, he was going to change everything, he's going to not do what he said, but I just felt like he lied. I'm going to take my.
Well, he did. Everything you said about him is true, with a cherry on top, No Mancha. There's no doubt about that.
You're saying that Obama...
What can we do, man? We have to choose between Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Tweedledum is slightly less bad than Tweedledee. That's really the place we're in. If you saw the abasement of the Republican nominees as they were on their knees in front of a pro-Israel audience just the other day, I mean, they were castigating Obama as a friend of the Palestinians, whom Gingrich described as an invented people. In other words, a people who didn't exist, who don't exist, whose interests are of no interest or value to him at all. Romney said that if he was asked when he was asked what he would do about the very turbulent political situation now in the Arab world, he said he would pick up the phone, and I'm quoting him, I'd pick up the phone to my good friend Bibi Netanyahu and ask him what to do. Ask him if I did this or said that, would it be helpful to you? So there is no doubt that this gang of neocon Tea Party maniacs who are running the Republican Party now, there is no doubt that they are worse than Obama, even though Obama is bad. So my advice, No Mancha, is to hold your nose, hold it tight, and go into the booth and vote for Obama. That's all you can do.
What's your views on Ron Paul?
But Ron Paul, as you correctly said, first of all, has absolutely no chance of being the Republican nominee. And if he was the Republican nominee, he would have no chance of being president, which is why he won't be chosen as the Republican nominee. And secondly, there's a tremendous amount of illusion out there amongst progressive people in America about Ron Paul. Sure, he's better than the others morally. He's better than the others on his attitude to foreign engagement by United States forces. But he's a right-wing libertarian who doesn't give a damn how many people are on food stamps. He doesn't believe the state has a role in feeding people, doesn't have a role in making people educated or healthy. He believes in market forces, untrammeled, uncivilized by any kind of government or state regulation at all. So he's actually the most right-wing candidate of them all. Having said that, of course, his attitude to intervention abroad, his isolationism, would be a good thing. We'd love to see some isolationism from the United States. Far too much of the opposite has been in evidence. Nomansa, thanks for the call. Ife, do we have a fourth?
Yes, you do. You have Rich. Rich is from Brooklyn. You actually have Nick. Nick is from Brooklyn.
Nick in Brooklyn, welcome to the show, Nick.
Mr. Galloway, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Glad to be talking to you.
I've heard you quite a few times on BAI. I've never called before. This is my first time, but I just wanted to bring up a couple of points with you. You said a few moments ago that I guess you'd vote for the lesser of the two evils, that being Obama.
Yeah.
Now, if any one of us, and I'm sure many of us have at this point, been acquainted with the Obama deception or the fall of the Republic, in that we will see that Obama has received a lot of money from Wall Street. Not only that, it's very interesting that as the last program that was on prior to yours, where they were talking about John Corzine, and he had no idea where all the billions went. Now he's sitting on top of the farm, and he bet the farm, as Nomi Prince said. And but you know, and now, so he's not accountable to anybody. This is going to go sitting on Obama's desk for him to make a decision. And I'll tell you what's not going to happen. He's not going to be indicted because the same people that funded Obama's administration are the Corzines. So he's no good for this country at all, because he cares nothing about what's taking place in terms of who's robbing the money, you know, who's robbing who. And so
all of that's fair. All of that's fair comment, Nick. But would Newt Gingrich be worse or better?
Newt Gingrich is an absolute globalist. He's horrible for this country as well. My vote goes to Ron Paul. Ron Paul is the only one. But you won't
have a chance to vote for Ron Paul. He won't be a candidate.
No, that's absolutely untrue. If you look at the polls, the true polls.
I do look at the polls. I look at them every day. And at the risk of sounding like Mitt Romney, I'll give you a wager that Ron Paul will not be the Republican Party nominee.
He won't be He may not be the Republican Party nominee because of his very conservative stances on many of the positions, especially the foreign policy with Iran and so on, and bringing the troops home.
But that's my point. He won't be a nominee, Nick.
No, well, that's what a lot of people want to believe, and the media also want.
Well, you believe it. You believe it. You've just conceded it.
No. I said there's a possibility of that if people believe like what you're saying right now. But I don't trust. I don't believe that at all.
Nick, I'll bet you $10. $10 I'll give you.
$10. Well,
Ron Paul will not be.
I'm not going to take that wager because I know he will. I know he will. He will be. He will be a.
You put your $10 into WBAI. I'll put my $10 in, and we'll talk again after the Republican primaries. Okay?
Okay, but at the end of the day, one last thing. At the end of the day, Obama is the worst choice, and you can look.
You've just conceded that he isn't the worst choice. Gingrich is worse than him. You conceded that.
Both of them are both the same. Listen. It's a paradigm.
They're not both the same, man. You cannot be serious. You cannot be serious, as John McEnroe used to say. You cannot say that President Gingrich is the same thing as President Obama. You're not paying attention.
What about Freddie and Fannie? Listen to me. What about Freddie and Fannie that this guy Gingrich took $40 million from, and then on top of that, Obama's getting funded by the same people from Wall Street? It's the same scenario, guys. It's the same scenario.
Many of the factors are the same, but not all of them. If you're one of the 1/3 of America in poverty or desperately close to it, I'm quoting from the Census Bureau, if you're one of the people on food stamps, don't tell me that Gingrich is the same as Obama, because that just doesn't make sense. Ife, give me a 16th.
WBAI's own Sandy Boyer from Radio Free Aaron.
Oh, it was a pleasure, my dear brother, to talk to you. How are you?
Good, George. And I did want to talk a little bit about Ron Paul, because you talked about him last week.
Yes, go ahead, yes.
One thing people don't realize, if you had Ron Paul, you'd have no civil rights laws. Ron Paul believes that any business person can discriminate. They don't have to, if you're black, he doesn't have to hire you.
That's right. He doesn't. He thinks that the state is too big, that it interferes in too much, and that's code in the libertarian right-wing circles in which he moves for basically abolishing such good things as we've managed to persuade various eras of the state to do. And I think there's so many progressive people don't understand that.
I agree. But I don't really think we have to worry. I don't think he is going to be the president because I don't think the 1% want him. They don't want ruthless competition. They like things like the Securities and Exchange Commission. They like the Federal Reserve. They don't want to compete against each other, which is what Ron Paul says he's for, back to somewhere in the probably mythical 19th century. So I don't think he'll ever get the money to run successfully for president.
No, I mean, in one sense, it's a positive that his anti-war and anti-imperial complications across the world is turning people on in the Republican heartland. I wish isolationism became the order of the day on the American right. And as I said earlier, if I was thinking selfishly, I'd want Ron Paul to be the president, because it would mean that the United States would not be over here and over there and everywhere. But I can scarcely believe that for the poor, for the working class in America, the introduction of capitalism red in tooth and claw, untrammeled, unregulated, which is what Ron Paul and the other libertarians on the right stand for, could possibly be in the interests of the mass of the people. I'm glad that we're on the same wavelength on that.
Right.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Take care,
let's go to the 6th. Thanks a lot.
Sure. This one is Gary from Long Island.
Gary in Long Island. Welcome, Gary.
Hello, Mr. Galloway. I have a question for you about what Barack Obama had said to Nicolas Sarkozy, and I also have another question after that, if I could ask too. But you remember when they were talking together and the mic was open, and Barack Obama
about Netanyahu?
Yes. And Barack Obama says, you don't like him. I got to deal with him every day. I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on that? Do you really believe that Barack Obama deals with Netanyahu every day? And I wonder why, people or the media didn't pick up on that more to say, well, what are you talking about, that you talk to this guy every day?
Yeah, I think it's really telling. And the microphone, just for those who didn't hear it, the microphone picked up Sarkozy describing Netanyahu in these terms. He said, I can't even look at his face. The man is a liar. And Obama shrugged and said, you think you've got a problem with him? I have to deal with this guy every day. And that in itself begs two questions. First of all, if this is the real view of the leaders of the world about Netanyahu, how come the world is constantly bending and breaking every rule of law and ethics and even realpolitik in order to accommodate the policies of this man that they can barely look at? And secondly, how come the United States of America, the mightiest country on the earth, is in thrall to such a degree to a country of 7 or 8 million people on the shores of the Mediterranean, thousands of miles away from your own country? How come the United States gives unlimited, virtually, largesse to this country, some $7 billion a year, in financial aid, military aid, and private philanthropy from the United States, without which Israel could not continue to exist, and most of its citizens would surely leave. How come the tail is so comprehensively able to wag the dog? Why did yesterday the United States veto a proposal supported by everybody else in the world to condemn the illegal settlement activity in Jerusalem, which is in defiance of international law, in defiance of the Oslo Agreement, in defiance of the opinions of virtually every single government in the world? How come, if Obama is so angry with this guy, does he accept that this guy can ritually and regularly humiliate him, which is what Netanyahu is doing?
Did you see the video of him addressing Congress, where like every literally 2 minutes they stood up and gave him a standing ovation?
Yes, it was the rapture. In Christian evangelical terms, it was the rapture. It was like the Messiah had returned. And I don't know if people in the United States, policymakers in the United States, know how that looked to the rest of the world.
I don't think they
Kim
care,
Il-sung,
I don't think
Kim Jong-il, the North Koreans couldn't have put on a more rapturous response to a guy that everybody in the world, we now know, when the microphone's switched off, can't stand.
Yeah. Now, if I might be able to add something about Ron Paul, I consider myself to be an independent. I consider myself to be a progressive. I think that the money in politics, I think the solutions to a lot of the problems in this country is simply to get the money out of politics. Mm-hmm. I believe that, like it drives me crazy when I talk to somebody and I say, look, we should have publicly financed elections. And they say, oh, I don't want to be, funding the bill for this guy who I don't believe in. The reason why we should have publicly financed elections is these people do whatever the money powers tell them to do. So if we, the people, became the money powers, I think it would go a long way to turning the ship around. Now, the things that are said about Ron Paul, I happen to support Ron Paul. And I don't believe, some of the things he said in the past, you could say, wow, it sounds like brutal capitalism. But what we have right now is crony capitalism. And crony capitalism is true tyranny. Because what it allows the powers to be to tell the people, you can't do something, but my friends can. Okay? So I would rather be at the whim of true capitalism, if we're going to have it at all, than crony capitalism. And another thing too, I
don't want to be at the whim of either. That's the issue for me, Gary.
But we have to be a something. So the thing is I would rather have somebody who's going to say, listen, we're not going to give anybody an advantage. And the thing is anybody who thinks that they're going to abandon all of the civil rights laws because of Ron Paul becoming president, that's insane. And I don't think he wants that. The guy is a medical doctor, okay? That's what he did in his earlier life. So, he must have some compassion for people who want to be doing that.
I don't know. I've known some pretty rum doctors, Gary. But listen, thanks for your call, my friend.
George, thank you.
I recognize there's a lot of people out there hoping that Paul wins, and I know why they are feeling that way. But I think they'd get a very rude awakening. The red in tooth and claw capitalism in which he believes, the abandonment of the state in huge areas of public life, would, I think, take the United States back to what an earlier caller said is a kind of mythical 19th century. But anyway, we'll see. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating. Gary, thanks for that. Let's take the 7th call, Aoife.
Yes, we want to welcome back Nick from Seacliff.
Nick, always a pleasure in Seacliff. Thanks very much.
Next up is Jeremiah from Queens as well.
Hello,
Jeremiah, always a pleasure. Nice to hear from you. Go ahead.
Always a pleasure. I just wanted to bring up a figure, a historical figure, whose name I don't hear mentioned, but who I think is very relevant, and maybe you've heard of him, and maybe you could share some thoughts on the idea of Malthusian logic, or the theories of Thomas Robert Malthus.
Yep.
I'm not an economist, but from what I understand of his theory, he had utter contempt for what we would call a common, ordinary working person, and he was sort of the progenitor of Taylorism, which is how to get the most productivity out of your factory workers, which involved, of course, a total disregard for those workers. And, I think if you were to, hear about Malthus in a modern-day university, and I don't know how frequently you would, it would probably be mentioned as sort of antique history. But it seems to me that Malthusian logic is actually the order of the day.
You're right. Malthus, maybe this is making too much of the comparison, but if Malthus were alive today, he'd be in the libertarian right-wing circles that Ron Paul inhabits. Malthus believed that the state could not intervene to save the population from the consequences of the economic system that we were operating. That nature, again, I use it for the third time, red in tooth and claw, would take care of that for us. That if there was not enough food, then a given number of people would have to die of starvation. If there was not enough wealth, then a given number of people would have to live without wealth. He rejected absolutely any role for the state in redistributing the food, redistributing the wealth, and that's where we would part company, because it's the point of view of someone like me that the problem is not the number of people we have in the world. Do you know that all the people in the world, every last one of them, could stand shoulder to shoulder, not only in Manhattan, they could stand shoulder to shoulder in a place called the Isle of Wight off the south coast of England, which if you look on your atlas, you'll discover is a tiny speck of land. All the people in the world, if they stood shoulder to shoulder, could fit onto that island. The problem is not the number of people in the world, but the maldistribution of food and wealth and resources in the world. And Malthus believed the opposite. He was against state intervention, state direction, state redistribution, which is the difference between a Malthusian and a socialist. Jeremiah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to wax lyrical about the late Thomas Malthus. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's WBAI.
Here he is, comrades. George Galloway, and the mother of all talk shows, guaranteed to destroy any weapons of mass deception.
Thanks, Ife. Let's go for the 13th.
Yes, you have Anthony from Secaucus, New Jersey.
Anthony in New Jersey, welcome to the show.
How's it going, George? I love you.
Very well, brother. Thanks for ringing.
It's a great show. I tell my family about you guys and everything.
Brilliant. Thanks for that.
Ron Paul and everything, but I wanted to know how you felt that he was winning the Iowa caucuses.
Do you think that Ron Paul's going to win the Iowa?
Well, he was already in first, and then the media spun it and said that it doesn't matter who's in first, that it's second or third that they look at.
Oh, really?
that was
So they're moving the goalposts, as we say.
Yeah, they said, it's not first, it's more second or third, the ones we pay attention to. But he's actually in first in Iowa. I don't know if he'll win the state, but I think he's doing really great. And the fact
of course, I hope that he wins in Iowa, and I hope he goes on to become the Republican challenger, but I don't believe that will happen. And if it did happen, I wouldn't be supporting him for president, notwithstanding the far better foreign policy positions he has as an isolationist to all the other candidates in the field, including President Obama. But I think that the right-wing libertarian ultra-capitalist policies that he supports would be very bad for the people of the United States.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, Anthony.
I'm always torn between the both. But thank you, George.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate that. Ife, do we have a third? Paul?
Your fourth call is Harriet from Queens.
Harriet?
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Thank you.
Great to hear from you. Go ahead.
My question is twofold. First of all, I got a little bit scared when I was listening this morning to WBAI, and there was a discussion of an alliance between the Occupy Wall Street movement and the Tea Party. I wasn't quite sure I understood that. I'm a part of the Occupy Wall Street movement, and that just seems like absolute anachronism. I can't wrap my mind around it. The other thing is that President Obama notwithstanding, there seems to be, in my view, an effacement of African American people, black and brown people from not only the mainstream media, and that is, I mean, I walk in the subways and I look at the billboards. There are no black and brown people, not in any of the media, not on television, or they have Tyler Perry or whatever, but not in the commercials, not in anything. And if people don't see you on TV, they somehow they tend to think you don't exist. And I get that feeling that somehow we have been so marginalized that people have forgotten that we're out there, and that in the meantime we're in a stew of our own which is keep spiraling us downward and downward. President Obama doesn't give a damn about us, and nobody else seems to. And at the same time, when people talk about an alliance between Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party, Occupy Wall Street seems to be the last people that might just care about us, you know, and that we might just be able to make an alliance with to bring us out of this state of genocide, which I see us being victims of. Yes, well, I just wondered how you would like to respond to that.
Well, first of all, this would be a very unholy alliance. There's no doubt about that. However, just as there are many people in the Occupy Wall Street movement who are ideologically unformed, just know that there's something wrong, that something has to change. That, I think, is also true of the Tea Party. Of course, within the Tea Party, there are many gun nut, survivalist, anti-state fanatics of the far right, no doubt. But there are also people who have fastened on to this Tea Party phenomenon because they know something is wrong. They know something has to change. So there could potentially be some grounds for working together on some things. But on race issues, such as you allude to, and on other economic and social issues, then I don't think that there's going to be any real potential for a coming together. One thing's for sure, if Ron Paul, for example, were to run as a right-wing libertarian candidate, as he well might if he doesn't secure the Republican nomination, which I infer he will not, then that will undoubtedly take a lot of votes away from the right, but it will also take some votes away from the left, because I'm discovering a great deal of confusion about Ron Paul on the left and amongst progressive people in America, who are constantly writing to me, telling me that I've analyzed him all wrong, but I'm not at all persuaded of that. Harriet, thanks for the call. This is George Galloway. This is the mother of all talk shows. This is WBAI.
People of America, this is the President of the United States. You are listening to George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. George is a Scotsman, unlike me, an Irishman. Enjoy.
That's me. I'm more interested this morning in the results from New Hampshire. It looks like Mitt, doesn't it? He's got the big Mo. Mo's Mitt, or Mitt's Mo. You tell me what you think. And what about Ron Paul coming in second? Is that significant or not? And what about what we've just been hearing on Democracy Now? That though Ron Paul may have an anti-war message, and I, for one, as somebody who doesn't live in the United States, could do with a bit more isolationism from your country, if he wants to eviscerate the social safety net, and he's got decidedly dodgy pedigree on issues of race, well, would we be buying a pig in a poke with Ron Paul? You tell me. 212-209-29.
Yes, you have Nick from Brooklyn.
Nick in Brooklyn, welcome back. Go ahead, sir.
Yep, good morning. I just want to ride on the coattails of the second caller. He brought up a couple of interesting points, a few of which I wanted to address with you. I realize that Obama, in the eyes of many, is the darling child that can do no wrong. But let's look at this man's track record for a minute, okay? Let's look at the fact that, and again, I go back to this. Let's look at the fact that under his administration, he's given away more money to the banks than any other president. Okay, $700 billion he gave away, which could have been given to the American people, but he didn't do that. He gave it away to his buddies. And then let's also look at the fact that under his administration, Okay? The NDAA Act has been signed. Oh, of course it's not going to be used against the American people. Well, what the heck did he sign it for? You see, the bottom line here is that there is no other choice for this country except Ron Paul. His ideas, and as far as him, leaving the poor and the old people out in the cold, that's not going to happen. His track record doesn't speak that. His track record speaks that he cares about the people. So he will obviously bring and implement a system that will work for the American people. But let's talk about something. He wants to bring his troops. He will cut $1 trillion, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, $1 trillion from his campaign, from his, if he gets into the White House, he will cut $1 trillion. You better believe that he will do that. What do you think? So, I mean, the Social Security is broke as it is now.
Let's analyze him. But first, I'd need to say, Nick, you said that in the eyes of many people, Obama is a darling child who can do no wrong. I don't think there are many such people left anywhere in America. I really don't think that that's accurate. It may have been accurate 4 years ago. It definitely isn't accurate now. So
you keep promoting him that way. But
let's leave Obama to one side and talk about your darling child, Ron Paul, although he is 76 years old, which would make Ronald Reagan look like a stripling if he were to enter the White House. Answer me this. When Ron Paul sent out letters describing Martin Luther King Day as Hate Whitey Day, what do you think he meant by that?
Well, let me ask you this. I'll answer that question. I will answer that question. But let me ask you this. Which is worse? Which is worse? All we can grab is something that he did 20 years ago, which he himself states.
No, that's not all.
I'm answering
I've got more. No. Nick, I've got more. I just want you to answer that. What did he mean by that?
What did he mean? What did he mean by what?
What did he say when he said that Martin Luther King Day was Hate Whitey Day?
I love this. We're not going to address the actual issues. We're going to address something minor.
We are, Nick. But we've got to get past first base.
No, we don't.
There's a lot of black people listening to this show.
You have to understand something. The issue here is that we have
listening to this show, Nick.
Overseas that are dying in wars.
Don't dodge this.
That is the issue. That is the issue.
Don't dodge this. We're coming on to other points, but let's get to first base first. What did your darling child mean when he described MLK Day as Hate Whitey Day? What did he mean?
He explicitly said, under no uncertain terms, it was a robo-signing. Which is worse, Mr. Galloway, a letter that he says that was robo-signed...
All right, Nick. We've established that your darling child allowed a robo-signing of a letter from him referring to MLK as Hate Whitey Day, and we've secondly established that you, as his advocate on this show, are not prepared even to try and explain what that could conceivably have meant other than a base, racist appeal to the right wing in America, the base of right-wing racists in America. And you're not even prepared to deal with it. So let's deal with the second point that you're keen to get onto. Let's deal with the points that you're keen to get onto. Ron Paul wants to... Listen to me. Listen, Nick. I'm asking you a question. I'll let you come back and answer it. Nick, if you don't shut up, I'll have to move on to the next caller, because I want to speak, and then you can respond, okay?
All of our lives. Black, white, yellow, brown, I don't care.
I'll tell you
all
what,
of our lives.
Ife, I think we've had enough of Ron Paul's supporter, and many of the listeners will have found that illuminating, I think. Ife, who have we got on 7th?
You have Carl from Brooklyn.
Carl in Brooklyn, welcome. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go on. You're on the air.
Yes, I'm calling to talk about this election thing that's going on here, that just went on in New Hampshire.
Yes.
I honestly believe that even though they claim that Ron Paul is a bigot,
we're not playing, Carl. We're just quoting him.
Okay, well, people change over time. I'm a black man.
He's still in favor of abolishing positive action in America. He's in favor of it now. He said so in this campaign.
He's in favor of what?
Abolishing positive discrimination in favor of minorities. He's against it. He's against it in principle.
Yeah, but what I admire about him, he wants to abolish the Federal Reserve.
Yes, but that's all just obscurantism, you see. This is the kind of smoke and mirrors trick that this guy is involved in. I support his isolationism. I support his proposals to withdraw American forces from theaters overseas. But I don't support him destroying the state, destroying government. If I didn't care for the American people, I would support that, because I'm going to benefit from his presidency if he ever got there. But you won't benefit from it, and especially not if you were a black man, Carl, or a poor man. You wouldn't benefit from it at all. Neither would you benefit from his destruction, his abolition of environmental protections. You wouldn't benefit from it at all, but the businesses would benefit from it. Profits would benefit from it.
Is he in favor of that hydrofracking?
I don't know what you mean by that.
The gas, what are you talking about? The fracking, about the gas and all that good stuff that they're trying to implement.
What I'll tell you about is that he wants to eviscerate not just the social safety net that feeds the poor, that educates the poor, that gives health care to the poor, because he believes in untrammeled, unregulated, tooth and claw, free market capitalism. That's what he believes in. Now, if you think you would benefit from that, Carl, if you think you would benefit from that, good luck. But the vast majority of people in America would not benefit from that.
Right. I don't think I would, but Mitt Romney is about the same thing.
Yeah, but I'm not here supporting Mitt Romney. I'm here saying that, first of all, Ron Paul cannot possibly win the Republican nomination. I'm absolutely certain about that. Secondly, the choice will come down to whoever the Republicans choose and President Obama. And, believe me, in that choice, I've only got one option.
Yes, I'll vote for
and that is
Obama,
to support Obama as the least worst option.
Right.
But there's no, you can't just, if I wrote 20 years ago that Martin Luther King Day was Hate Whitey Day, I wouldn't think that I could get out of that one by saying it was robo-signed, or by saying that it was 20 years ago and I've changed over time, especially as he hasn't changed over time. As anyone studying his attitude to minorities and programs to benefit them in this campaign, this year, could easily check out. Carl in Brooklyn, it's been a pleasure to disagree with you. Ife, do we have a 13th?
New Jersey.
KB in Newark, New Jersey, welcome.
Hello, Mr. Galloway. How are you today?
Very well. Nice to hear from you, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Well, one thing that I have been finding disturbing, and I've listened to your show for a very long time. This is my first time calling. A lot of people do indeed seem to voice a certain level of dissent, especially with this government. Now, I don't particularly know how it goes in England. Like I'm still learning about your guys' political process, but I've been studying what we have over here in America for quite a long time, and what it turns out to be is just a popular radio host in the area. He said it quite well. He was like, left wing, right wing, it's all the same bird. Either way, you're flying the same direction, and you're going to get there at the same time. Unfortunately, I begrudgingly...
Well, I just don't think that that's correct. I mean, I don't regard the Democrats as left-wing, but if the right-wing candidate wants to eviscerate, as I keep saying, such minimal social safety net as you have in your country for the poorest and most disadvantaged people, I'm against that. That's a right-wing policy. If the right-wing candidate wants to wants to abolish departments of state, wants to shrink the government, wants to cut taxes. I know who benefits from that. The richest people benefit from that. They keep the money they would otherwise pay in taxes, and they spend that money on looking after themselves. But millions, scores of millions of people in America don't have that ability to do that. They've only got a job, maybe paying minimum wages, maybe paying just a little above minimum wages. Tax cuts and the demolition of the government does nothing for them, believe me.
Oh, definitely. I'm in the same boat with that particular idea about it. I personally am of the opinion that the whole point of government is to take care of all of its citizens, and anything beyond that point is just like.
Well, we all need a government. We all need a government, KB. We need a state. If you want to see what a country looks like that doesn't have a government, that doesn't have a state, look at Somalia. There's no tax in Somalia. There's no positive action programs in Somalia. There's no environmental protection in Somalia. There's no rights enshrined in any constitution in Somalia. It's got the smallest state you could possibly imagine. The idea that for the majority of people, shrinking the state, which is the whole libertarian mantra of Ron Paul and others, the idea that for the majority of people in America there's anything in that for them is one of the most profound misconceptions in modern-day politics. KB, great to talk to you. Ife, give me a 4.